Hello, my name is April Souza. Today's training will focus on how schools, primarily low-income schools, can increase parent engagement. During this training, we will review 3 academic journals that revolve around increasing parent involvement in schools. This will include discussing methodology, key findings, and how the research can inform schools on a micro and macro level. Our first journal argues that traditional school-centered models of parent involvement, like PTA, meetings, and bake sales, are insufficient for low-income communities, and a community-based relation model works better to connect families and community agencies with schools to build relationships and foster trust. And here we have a chart of how the community-based relational model differs from a traditional model. The community-based relational model differs from the traditional model by empowering parents and guardians to take on leadership roles rather than occasionally supporting school leaders. This model wants to lessen the power imbalance between schools and families by addressing things that traditional models might gloss over, like race, social injustices, and systemic barriers. This academic journal includes a case study that looks at 3 different models of school community collaboration: the service model, development model, and organizational model. They collected data across 3 schools using stakeholder interviews, participant observations, and document analysis. With this data, they conducted a cross-case analysis where they identified common themes around relationship building, leadership development, and addressing power imbalances. Their research showed the importance of relationships between parents themselves, and that having social networks increase parent engagement because they felt a sense of mutual accountability among families. They also found that parents in leadership roles increased engagement. Parents were more likely to show up for volunteer opportunities if they felt they had access to decision-making roles. Additionally, schools in which families felt they showed cultural awareness had more engagement from the community. The community-based relation model can help schools by highlighting the importance of investing time in building relationships with families, and because this will keep families engaged and invested in the school as a community resource rather than just their child's education institution. And if parents feel supported, they will show up on a district level for input on district policy and evaluations. Our second academic journal focuses on how schools can involve low-income families in their children's education. This article discusses the benefits seen across all racial and economic backgrounds, uh, from attendance, behavior, and graduation rates being higher in schools that have more parental involvement. They argue that traditional school models have a one-way communication strategy where they are often telling parents what they need from them, but not asking families what they need from the school. When families were asked what was keeping them from um, being involved in their children's school, particularly low-income families. They gave insight into practical obstacles like transportation, lack of childcare, and work obligations, as well as past negative experiences with schools where they felt discriminated against, alienated for their cultural or economic status, or simply weren't able to communicate with school leadership because of language barriers. The authors of this article examine community centric strategies for increasing parent engagement in low income schools. These include building relationships by reaching out on a personal level with positive feedback to families, also implementing culturally relevant activities that will help normalize families' presence in the school. This could mean hosting an iftar dinner during Ramadan to familiarize Muslim families with the school. In order to find out what culturally relative activities would benefit the community, the school should reach out to community organizations to gain insight. Schools should also be viewing families and parents as assets. This could mean asking a Muslim parent to lead the organization of the iftar dinner, and the implications of this community centric strategies must be accompanied by a multicultural awareness training for all school staff in order to reduce bias and foster mutual respect. The best way to support low income families' school participation on a micro and macro level is to have institutions and individuals advocate for community centric engagement strategies to be included in school improvement plans. Additionally, counselors individually can implement these community centric engagement strategies by proactively communicating with families to discuss culturally responsive um, parent involvement programs. Our last academic journal focuses on community engagement parent education, or SEEP for short. SEEP is a civics engagement based method developed from the Families and Democracy Project and Public Works model to deliver parent education topics. The purpose of the SEEP study was to train parent educators to engage in civic dialogue around parenting and family issues. And it was also to evaluate a mentor based approach to develop these new educators and then assess the parent outcomes after 2 years. Each parent educator received weekly one on one mentoring. They also participated in regional group meetings and statewide trainings. They also completed independent learning via SEEP handbooks and demonstration videos. After the 2 years, they evaluated the parent educators and found that mentoring was incredibly beneficial as a means of education. And when given the resources, parents will engage in both personal and collective civic action. The core principles of SEEP are encouraging parents to identify social and community factors related to their parenting concerns, facilitate dialogue around how public and personal concerns intersect, as well as supporting parents in taking individual or collective civic action. And these are not in a set curriculum, rather, an integrative lens to be applied across all parent education topics. To support low income parents' engagement in schools, in practice and policy, it's important to fund mentorship based professional development, to parents and educators. This could be done by implementing licensing and certification standards um, to incorporate SEEP training, as well as allocating public funds for mentor based SEEP training to provide education to parents. This could be done through programs like early childhood family education and Head Start, as well as incentivizing school districts and community agencies to integrate SEEP via grants that support long-term educator development. The consistent theme in the academic journals we looked at today is cultural awareness and communication. I believe the first step is to build trust with families. And then once the lines of our communication are open, work to address the barriers that may be keeping them from being more engaged in the school. And once you have the lines of communication open with some families, use the relationships that you've built to recognize their cultural capital and use them as cultural liaisons that can work to make other families feel like part of the school by seeing their own culture represented in schools. Thank you for listening to this training.